one of the most polarizing prospects in the draft was your kid, and you had to evaluate him. That's actually something that's going on with the Cowboys right now, sort of. Deuce Vaughn, the electric running back at Kansas State. This guy is you always talk, Shan, about how the Bijan highlights have not been what you hoped. The highlight reel has just Google Deuce Vaughn highlights and you're going to get pumped. The problem with Deuce Vaughn for the NFL is he's 5'6".
He's 5'5", 179.
5'5", 179.
Ooh, tiny.
He's a small guy, but he can catch the ball. He's fast. He's got some wiggle. He's really, really good. He is the son of Chris Vaughn, one of the Cowboys' national scouts.
Really good scout.
Really, really good. Just got promoted to national scout after being the Southeast scout for a little while. Had been on staff at the University of Texas before that.
You put your best scout in the Southeast.
Oh.
Yeah, you better.
Checking out my godson.
Southeast.
It's at Vanderbilt, right?
Yeah.
Congrats.
National. Now he's got the title of Assistant Director of College Scouting. So he keeps ascending. He's somebody that they think really highly of. But Chris Vaughn, who needs to be in on all these meetings and evaluating all these players, there's one player, after he's graded 350 according to Todd Archer at ESPN, there's one player he hasn't been able to evaluate, and that's his son. Will McClay and Mitch LaPointe, the director of college scouting, made the decision to have Chris Vaughn sit out that debate. And Chris said, I appreciate them doing that. Not that I think I think that would be an issue, but we just took that part of the scenario out of it. So he was not part of these debates about Deuce, doesn't know what the discussions were, anything else. And to be fair, we interviewed Chris last year.
But he could walk into the room when he comes back and see where they put the tag.
Yeah, he'll see the tag.
He'll see the tag.
He just won't know.
Would you recuse yourself? It's got to be impossible.
It's difficult. I mean, nobody knows the faults of their child more than the parent, unless they're completely blind to it.
Choppy, you'll know this. I think there's the assistant general manager with the Rangers used to be. Is it Draylon Moore?
You know him, Sean. You know him.
He was at the Royals for a while.
His son was an outstanding baseball player at Arkansas, one of the top baseball players in the country. And here he is, a general manager, will be with the Royals. Mm-hmm. And, the discussions about that and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think you have to hang in there and know what the situation is.
If you're the GM, you have to.
Yeah.
If you're just an area scout, or even if
assistant director of college scouting.
Even if you're the assistant director of college scout, you still have people over you that are decision makers. I don't know. It's tough because I know all his deficiencies.
Yeah.
I also know what he's really good at.
Yeah.
But you also, I think, once your kid, by design, you think that he'll figure it out.
Well, this is what you say if you're the dad. Deuce has played at 5'5" his whole life. He's always been. I mean, he's worked through any deficiency. The only problems with Deuce Vaughn is he's 5'5".
That's it.
It's much like the same thing with Bryce Young. He's a 5'10" quarterback, and he's played through it. So you can at least see. I mean, the most impressive thing about this kid is, like, they hand him the ball, and it looks like he is trapped, and he's through. He's through the hole, or he hides behind the line, kind of patient, and then he just squirts through, and next thing you know, it's like a 7 or 8 yard gain.
To me, it comes down to.
But he's been this. It's not like all of a sudden he's just now 5'5" playing this way.
If there's something on the line, like you're asking me to describe my kid for the draft, I'm not going to be able to do that because I'm going to want to sell him a little bit, subconsciously or selfishly. If you're just asking me to evaluate my kid, I can give you a damn honest evaluation of my kid.
Like his behavior?
Like all his traits. I tell his teacher all the time, how was he if I pick him up at school? Oh, he had a great day. I said, tell me the truth. I said, you don't have to, don't dress it up. I know I'm
around him.
I know he's a terror.
Yeah.
Tell me, did he hit someone? Did he bite someone? Did he scream? Did he throw a temper tantrum? So, but if she was like, well, we're having awards for the best kid, free scholarship for the year. Tell me about him. I'd be like, I'd probably dress it up a little bit.
Yeah, he's
also
perfect.
Also, like,
perfect.
We've seen short running backs succeed. We've seen Darren Sproles, MJD.
I mean, we've seen shorter.
Westbrook.
Yep,
we've seen shorter players. Jakeem Grant was somebody who went undrafted because of his size, and he ended up getting a second contract, made the Pro Bowl as returner. Yeah. So it can definitely happen. You know, one person who would not need to be recused if they were a scout, Mike Bassick. Mike Bassick was an MLB scout, and his kid came up. He'd be like, no, his work ethic, guys. And like, oh my gosh, let me tell you about him.
I think all of us would probably be, except for Choppy, we'd probably be too harsh. You'd probably be too harsh. Well, you would definitely be too harsh, Bobby. I would probably be too harsh.
I
don't take him.
I got to the point where I asked friends of mine in the Ivy League to evaluate Bennett as a potential quarterback if he could go to Columbia or Dartmouth or one of those things. And these coaches gave me an honest assessment, and I thanked them. Yes. I kind of understood what I think Bennett could do, but they said, well, hey, and this is how we would play, or this is how we, and they watched him play. So I kind of said, okay, well, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. It's not, sometimes you don't always hear what you want to hear about your kid. But if you ask somebody to evaluate and they evaluate, you can say, okay, well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Which I agree with Chris Vaughn's assessment there, where he said, I don't think it would have been a problem. We interviewed him day 3 last year because he had been one of his guys that gotten picked. So we were in there and we just mentioned Deuce, and he's like, yeah, if you ask me, you're probably going to get a different answer than if you ask his mom. Mom's going to give him the glowing response, but still an interesting equation. And this is the first time the Cowboys face something like this since Matt Linehan was coming out in the draft, and they had to have Scott Linehan step out of the meetings. Draft buzz from Todd McShay. Brian, I'm going to throw some of these nuggets at you that Todd McShay wrote about yesterday for ESPN.
By the way, who are your top 3 TV personality evaluators? Like, who do you really trust the most?
Daniel Jeremiah is number 1 for me because he's lived this.
Okay.
Bucky Brooks has also lived this. I mean, I do respect. I respect Kuiper because he's been doing it the longest. He's the one. He was like he was the first one.
But none of these guys, right? Because I think the general fan in me, I'm like, why doesn't someone hire this guy?
Zerline's really good.
Houston?
Yeah, Houston, when he's on NFL Network. I tend to gravitate more towards the guys that have lived this than the guys that maybe are, been doing it a while, like McShay and stuff.
Okay.
McShay's around a lot of college players, though, because he's a sideline reporter.
Yeah.
So he has to be in a lot of those meetings, listening to them talk about these players.
Jahmyr Gibbs at Alabama.
Yes.
5'9", 199, really electric player, great receiver.
Yes.
Todd McShay is hearing now at this point he'd be stunned if he got out of the first round.
I have him as my 16th best player.
And he said specifically because it's considered a weak receiver class, there are some teams that may think, well, we're getting a runner and we can put him in the slot. We can do some stuff in the slot with him.
There's a lot of things you could do with that guy. And the receiving aspect of it is special with him. It really is.
Speaking of the top receivers in this class, which Dane Brugler told us, we've talked about it. He said his top receiver in the class would have been 7th receiver last year, behind Jahan Dotson. It is a weak receiver class. Jackson Smith and Jigba from Rockwall, the Ohio State kid, largely considered the number 1 wide receiver. There's some debate about number 2, and there's 3 names apparently getting kicked around that teams generally have as number 2. Would you like to guess those 3 names, Brian?
They're probably kicking around Hyatt.
Nope.
Flowers.
Yep. Zay Flowers, Boston College.
Addison.
Jordan Addison, USC.
I don't think they're kicking around Johnston.
They are.
Is it Johnston?
Quentin Johnston. And
okay.
What that is, because Bruce Feldman over The Athletic wrote about the draft class yesterday and said something about Quentin Johnston, where there was a quote from an NFL scout that explains a lot of the concerns that these teams still have about, classical thinking about measurables and everything else, is that they recognize, he's still not polished, Quentin Johnston at TCU. He's got issues with his hands. He doesn't catch. But they said, he's big.
Yeah.
These other guys here, Zay Flowers is 5'9". Jordan Addison weighs 173 pounds. Like, Quentin Johnston has NFL size, and so there are teams that are willing to take him as the number 2 receiver, even if they don't think talent-wise he may be 5th or something like that.
Flowers, Boston College. Downs, North Carolina.
Another small guy.
Scott, Cincinnati. Mims, Oklahoma. All small guys.
How much are the Cowboys going to hold this against these guys with the West Coast offense?
I think that, to me, because Bobby will tell you, it's if they're slot only players. That's the thing about it, is that they're, if it's you have to prove to them that you can play on the outside as well. You know, they want the inside-outside guys. And some of these guys, they'll have to see. I think Flowers can play on the outside. I think he can.
Maybe. I don't know if they view that. I think they believe Marvin Mims could. So Randall Cobb was a smaller receiver. He was 5'10", but Mike McCarthy clearly had an affinity for him.
He's a third-round guy, right?
And, yeah, but he could play inside out. They felt they knew he could play inside. So it's not the size issue. It's, do we believe you can actually play on the outside with your size? And if you can, they like you. Bigger receiver. We've already talked about Cedric Tillman. One of these other ones,
Mingo from Mississippi.
Ole Miss's Jonathan Mingo. Todd McShay is now here, and he's going to go in the top 50.
Mingo is?
Yes.
Yeah. There's just not any size. That's the problem. And people are evaluating. The one thing Mississippi has been able to do is they put some big physical receivers in this draft over the years.
Have we not, like, you know, Tyreek's not very big. Antonio Brown was not very big. There's a lot of guys. Justin Jefferson's only 6'1". That's not like big. You know, like, have we not just?
But it's not.
I mean,
6'1"
different than 5'8", 5'9".
When I mentioned Flowers, Downs, Scott, and Mims, that's all under 5. That's all 5'9" and lower.
All these corners coming out are 6'1".
And Dell from Houston, who people ask about, he's 5'8". So yeah, I mean, that's the problem with this draft right now, Chop. And you can even with Addison, the USC receiver, he's 173 pounds. You know, the people are worried about this guy's getting bullied a little bit.
Then one more quick note here. McShay, the 3 teams most linked to Hendon Hooker right now, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers,
19,
the Minnesota Vikings,
20,
and trade back option for the Tennessee Titans.
That makes sense.
Tennessee, that'd be a nice hometown story there.
Going to be a fun draft for RJ with all his Vols, or no?
No, it's going to be good. Yeah, they deserve. I'd like to see the Cowboys draft Darnell Wright, the tackle that they could plug in a guard. I think that's immediate plug and play. That's very much a more talented Ron Leary is what that is.
Then we get 4 in the top 60.